So a single barracks proxy. A little bit of that pressure. This actually, I feel like, has come back a little bit. There was a GSL group recently where a Marauder 2 showed up and actually got a pretty instant GG. So it can be quite brutal to deal with. But nowadays in TVT, maybe 1 or 2 maps you don't go for a factory expand, or if you really believe they're not going to be that aggressive, you'll try and get away with it. Now, like 90% of the time, it's factory expand, which should set you up better against any type of early pressure. And the worst combination for SpeCial right now would be a factory expand and SCV scout. Very, very safe, and that's exactly what Bunny's doing.
It's going to be something, of course, SpeCial doesn't know because he sent his SCV to go do the proxy. And if you're proxying, you're kind of busy making your building rather than actually moving in to see what your opponent's doing. So we'll be interested to see how SpeCial's going to respond. And, of course, at that point, he's going to already be pretty committed. But we see that both the players' Reapers are starting at roughly the same time. Bunny's going to come in over here and see, no barracks by the supply depot wall. Might kind of dip in a little bit further just to confirm things, but also the SCV showing up pretty late is kind of a giveaway.
It is actually very interesting that SpeCial's going to go 1 Rax Reaper Rush, as opposed to trying out any Marauders, which can kind of form a little bit of a contain, even if they are only like 1 or 2 Marauders. They're just so beefy, it takes a while to actually kill them. So he gets in, he sees that there's no barracks, and really, like, I mean, he actually didn't even bother checking, like, the corner for, like, a hidden second barracks or anything like that. He just takes it as a face value, sees the factory timing, and then, I mean, he might, you know, it's actually going to be a little bit awkward maybe for Bunny, who might have been planning on going into, like, a second Reaper, for instance. You don't really want to do that if you think you're being 2 racks, because it takes so long to pop out. So maybe Bunny's a little thrown off build order-wise with these Marines on the way, and now a later reactor, too. But if that's all that SpeCial wanted, then, I mean, then he did it. He did it, you know? And and now he can't really be harmed either because it's 1 Reaper to 1 Reaper.
Yeah, pretty uncommitted overall. Of course, the barracks is eventually going to have to get out of there. There's going to be a delay in maybe some production time for that barracks. But overall, we're going to get to move into what TVT tends to be a bit more about, which is going to be a lot of those factory units popping on out and eventually, you know, figuring out ways to establish some more of those bases.
This is really interesting. I mean, we already talked about it on the desk that, a second factory's right. All right, so I was going to say, I think SpeCial is going to be going for factory style, mech, of course, and I didn't expect such a fast second factory, but I was like, this kind of makes sense, right? So Bunny has to, like, be on guard against an actual pressure, so he doesn't really go for a lot of attacking units. He goes for defensive units. SpeCial then doesn't really need his barracks other than to build factories, so you do have to take that in consideration, as this is already at half health. But he can get a lot of scouting done, and then otherwise, yeah, it isn't necessary. He's outing on factories. So this is kind of a cool way to open. I mean, yeah, I guess it really isn't realistic for Bunny to respond any other way. So yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like a normal game, right? But there's this cool little just addition where maybe SpeCial gets to throw off his opponent a little bit, and then gets a lot of scouting with that barracks. He's going to have to replace it eventually, but I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, worth noting, you were talking about the scouting that SpeCial was getting with both the barracks, as well as even the Reapers kind of popping in to poke away at the Marines before encountering the wall. SpeCial is going to end up, by the way, losing one of the Reapers over there, but he also did manage to make his way far enough in that he saw the tech lab while he was on the factory. He didn't see the tech lab that got swapped over to the starport instead, so I am curious what he's going to be thinking, whether or not there is going to... I guess, actually, you're just using it for the Ravens, so it's probably not going to come as a massive surprise either way.
Yeah, either way, like, I mean, it's possible that your opponent goes into a Banshee, as that has also been making, like, not exactly a comeback, but people have been trying to do it.
With MacField Accelerator Cyclones, I don't think you're really too worried, though.
Yeah, you wouldn't be too worried about that as long as you, I mean, if you had one scan that pretty much would do it, that, you know, the Banshee player would be depending on a very bad... unfortunate timing, but SpeCial is going for, MagField Accelerator, lots of Cyclones, lots of early game potential pressure, but not necessarily at this point because tanks are really good against this, but map control absolutely, definitely for sure. And with that map control, SpeCial is going for a very greedy third base. Basically, the only map that's really acceptable for an on-location third CC is Romanicide, and usually even that's based off the fact that you have a a bit of a push, right? You're putting it to your opponent to respond, so you're kind of sneaking away a third CC. To do it like this when there really isn't pressure on Bunny and on Lightshade, I mean, that is straight up greedy. But the good news is it'll finish, so if Special does have to lift it later, it's an option. He can be able to lift it.
Yeah, and nice thing is also just the Cyclone, when they poked in earlier, Special actually did manage to get the lock onto the Reaper. So the one thing that maybe could have at least done some scouting across the map or something is just not really available. And even if there was any other Marines or something sent out, there's actually the Widow Mines that are burrowed in nice spots that would intercept everything. So yeah, Bunny going to be very much in the dark for a little bit, and we'll see if he even decides that he wants to poke forward a little bit, because those Cyclones with Mag Fuel Accelerator are going to be able to lock on and snipe off high-value units really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, usually after a while in TVT, you're talking about a lot of Marines, and it's not really effective for Cyclones to lock on at that point. But in early to early mid-game TVT, it's all about technology, unless your opponent opened with like a 2-1-1 or something, which Bunny wasn't going to do, especially because of the way it opened with the proxy racks. So basically, Special will be able to lock on to like 5 or 6 incredible units. You know, tanks, Ravens, and Vikings, and taking those out of the equation would be fantastic. One Cyclone almost gets low. It does die. There we go. But it takes out the tank as well. That's a decent start to the trade, as Special is, of course, happy back at home with his economic setup.
Yeah, gets a lock onto the Viking instead of the Raven. Yeah, you have to be really careful, especially the Mag Fuel Accelerator Cyclones. They can kill a CC in about 5 seconds flat if they have, 4 or 5 of them locked on. You really, really have to be cautious with this. He's going to land it again. That gives the Cyclones an opportunity to lock on again. I'm actually really worried, Zombie Grub. Oh, no, not again.
Oh, Bunny. Oh. It's been a while since the Cyclone meta was really a thing. Maybe you forgot just how powerful 6 or 7 of them are with the upgrade. Now, of course, he has to go for the counterattack. The good news is the Cyclones lost maybe 5 seconds of lock-on potential, but they're right back in the middle of the map looking to defend. Special, it is a lot about the Cyclones. He's got a couple Liberators, but only 1 tank. Perhaps Bunny, if he could actually push to a pivotal point, like on the 3rd CC, he might get some revenge, but is it going to be enough?
Man, Ravens even walked into the auto turrets over there for a moment, or the missile turret, I should say, and takes a little bit more damage, making it easier for the Cyclones to potentially kill them. Like you were saying, the 3rd CC can lift up and retreat out, and Bunny doesn't have any ridiculous firepower like Special did, so he can't really kill that off very, very quickly. But he is going to try and reestablish this and just try and create a presence here to contain Special while he gets up his 3rd expansion again. And the lock-on from the high ground.
I couldn't actually quite grab the 2nd lock-on. He was just back far away enough. I mean, this is some decent revenge, as I was saying. Like, it's pretty good, but Bunny is still ultimately down in a... Oh, wow, 18 workers are going down. What is actually killing those? The Liberator? The Liberator. The Liberator sieged up, and Bunny, who was already at an economic loss thanks to the 3rd CC, loses 18 SCVs, making this, what was pretty much an all-in now. Really, really all-in. Like, it's just going to be so difficult. Even if Special gets contained for a while, his army is getting better. He's getting just into the, nice mech area with 4 gases at the very least, and that's all right.
Yeah, the 3rd CC being rebuilt is not going to be enough to recover economically for Bunny. He has to do more, but now the Liberator count is start growing over here to try and push in, because Bunny knows that he's on a timer. The Interference Matrix coming out on the Vikings is an interesting choice there from Special, from Bunny, but he ends up getting that air superiority. Yeah,
actually, the Cyclones didn't get the lock-on the Liberators, or at least the ones that did died. So the Liberators are still almost half health here. They can continue pressuring Special. The lack of tank production is starting to hurt him. Well, of course, also the lack of air superiority, which eventually he will get, especially now that the Ravens are out of the equation. He's going to pull the SCVs. He's going for the defense. Bunny is going to be losing army, but can he trade out a lot of those SCVs? I mean, the answer is yes. He's already gotten quite a few, I suppose, but still down by 11 in total.
Yeah, and he's also still losing a handful of these units on the retreat as he, ends up losing a handful of the tanks. More of the Marines are going to try and trade out over here, but they're actually trading out mostly versus a lot of the Hellions, which are definitely the replaceable units over here for Special. More siege tanks siege up in the center of the map as well, also going to go down. And now, what's there left to defend the 3rd base against a pretty mobile army that gets there incredibly fast?
Yeah, a lot faster than those tank-based armies. And that means they also can run away, not get... as badly surrounded or concaved on. Bunny, I mean, he was trying to rally. He was trying to continue pressuring. He was hoping that his tanks would blast apart these Cyclones, which they usually do very well.
Oh, no,
but
not again.
There was just enough area for the Cyclones to actually win many of these fights. Now they're pressuring the third CC, which goes down again.
Oh my God! Special goes up 1-0 in this best of 3, looking incredibly strong and very, very well prepared for Bunny.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's such a small little difference, though, right? Like just a single barracks in proxy. But the way that the other Terran player has to read that and has to respect it really does make it more, it's like puffing up your feathers. Like, you are not actually that intimidating, but because they have to defend and take you seriously, they back off of you and they just like refuse to go on your turf. And you're like, all right, then fast third CC on location, bullying him with my cyclones, all things you can do at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note, like, that was, of course, an unfortunate moment where the third CC goes there and there's just no backup or anything. That's, like, a little bit of vision lost, but, like, it's like you were saying, there were a lot of things that Special did to build up to that moment so that Bunny was in the dark. It wasn't just like Bunny didn't make any active effort to find out any information. It's like, no, Special kept him in the dark with a lot of the decisions and the build order and everything. And that was what the really impressive preparation part was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's actually kind of tricky. I'm sure there's some tells that like Bunny will now be more on guard against to be like, oh, it's not going to be as committed as it usually would be. But yeah, so I'm not sure you get away with that similar opener and it works out that beautifully, because I think a big difference is what if that third CC hadn't died? Bunny probably has a decent game to play out where he does start to showcase why he is usually good versus mech. He'll be able to pull apart Special. He could have abused the low tank count like this, but with a third CC behind it, right? Like, yeah, that would have been incredibly different, but the way that Special played this out, I mean, it was almost perfect, sure, but it was kind of, it was the intelligence that we saw when he faced Innovation in that best of 5, right, in GSL, and we were like, oh, you should really respect Special. It kind of bombed the next time those two players met in the last season finals, but still, you could see why Special is such a prepared player.
Well, hopefully we won't see a repeat of that kind of situation. Hopefully Special will, for his own sake, be able to find a way to, I guess, make his preparation work out in game number 2 over here, and maybe advance out in the winner's side, not have to play versus Bunny again or something in a decider match. But yeah, we're heading into map number 2 on 2,000 atmospheres. Starting up at the top right-hand side of the map, we still have our red Terran player from Team Envy. He is Bunny.
In the bottom left, representing that Storm Gaming, he is Special.
Am I a blessing or a curse when I predict something? I'm getting a little worried.
That's an interesting question.
It's just one game. We're not gonna oversell this or anything. Special, of course, is the kind of player who can absolutely take a map and everything. But I mean, Special really did look like he came pretty prepared today. I'm a little worried.
Yeah, well, what does seem to happen, though, with Special is that he always comes looking rather prepared, and he's got these cool little builds, but then just something goes either a little too wrong or honestly, like, really, really wrong. And you're like, the idea, like, you can pick up on the idea and be like, this is why it would have been beautiful, but then it just doesn't work. That does happen, especially, I feel like, a decent amount. And I'm thinking of the SOS games yesterday where he did something that I couldn't figure out and it didn't work. And it's just like, Special is the type of player where you see things, you know they could work out. He gets unlucky, the execution isn't quite there, but you know one time, one of these days, he's going to have a great run where everything lines up exactly with his really quite intelligent plans.
Yeah, and it especially sucks when that doesn't happen. But we are going to be seeing sort of the same kind of like a Reaper openings from both these players, but obviously this time not a proxy from Special. And you were kind of talking about this in the last game also, just like the standard of having that kind of 1-1-1 setup. But we do have Special going for the faster command center here. Yeah,
just a one-racks expand. I mean, 2,000 atmospheres is also one of those maps. I said like 1 or 2, and I feel like it is Romanticide and Light Shit, or 2,000 atmospheres. Blah. But yeah, you can try and go for 1-racks expand. It is just like, I mean, I think obviously the 2-racks defense gets a little bit tougher, so you usually also have the SCV scout. But then also just the options that stem off of a factory expand, like how many Reapers you get, how many Hellions you get, do you actually go up to the starport and just stay on one base, are all things that just make it a little bit harder for the other Terran to figure out. So Special, he's actually just basically gambling, like, I don't think he's going to do anything, because he 1-racks expands and doesn't scout, and the gamble has paid off.
Yeah, Reaper's going to poke on forward, but Special has his own Reaper and Marine here and ready to defend in time. So Bunny has to back off, and, well, he's just going to wait for his second Reaper and see what he can get done then. But, yeah, again, Special's going to have all the tools he needs with the Hellion going to be popping out pretty soon.
Yep. His additional Marines can be microed again, sure, but only if there's a... well, a second Reaper makes it a little bit better for Bunny, but even then, like, I feel like you do need a few more units to actually overwhelm the Marines, basically, consistency. And, of course, you know, the Hellion's on the way. There it is, indeed. And especially if you're going to add on this Widow Mine, so if Bunny were prepping, like, the 3 Reaper, 2 Hellion, or 5 Reaper, 3 Hellion thing, like, he takes such a big amount of damage. Juggling, doing whatever you can, but it won't be very much. Oh, it's the Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper does finally go down. I want to commend Special a little bit on that early game micro with the Reaper and stuff, though, because the Marines were not taking any damage. Usually the Reaper's the thing that you want to have take damage but not die. And he was doing a pretty good job with that until, you know, the very, very last bit. But this is starting to get to the point where it looks like Bunny's not going to be able to make a whole lot more progress. And he's also not going to be able to really get any further deeper scouting information, so this is kind of where we start to get to see what the tech choices are going to be. I love the grenades on the Widow Mine, though.
That's cute, actually, because the Widow Mine, if it picks up and tries to burrow again, maybe that is what causes it to die instead. Yeah. So Special still doesn't have any scouting, right? Like, he didn't go for any scouting to begin with. His Reaper just died. I'm not sure he planned on using that Reaper or anything but defensively, though, either, honestly, the way that he is playing. And he does add on Banshees. Now this, no matter how the plan is supposed to go or is already going, Banshees are already a bit of a gamble, no matter what really, because the Cyclone Raven is just such a popular opener, and we see it even being a bully right now, so the Banshee has to be used defensively. It's actually interesting to actually show that right off the bat, but I guess in a way it's almost like having an Oracle or like a Warp Prism or something like that, where you're just like, well, you know 2 Banshees are going to be like on both sides of your bases, and you know I could sneak in and kill 10 SCVs when you aren't paying attention, so I guess you kind of have to respect the Banshees in a way.
Yeah, I guess just the threat is, in a sense, kind of a little bit of damage in the sense that, like you said, it's going to prevent a lot of map control and everything for Bunny. Just be out on the map because you have to leave those units back at home. Well, Cloak is still going to be finishing up, and of course that Banshee is still going to head around, so there's an opportunity to find something, as those Marines do have to split up pretty perfectly, and also you need to only make sure that your Raven's at the angle that your opponent's Banshee comes in at, so you can potentially still force out a scan or at least get an SCV kill or two while the Raven's make its way over.
And because the Cyclone Raven is so powerful as a response, like, Terran players really don't want to have to build faster missile turrets to deal with it. If they do think their opponent's going to try and be greedy behind it, they could build a missile turret, some missile turrets, and then push. And I think this would be the type of game where if Bunny did that, that would be a good idea. Because once again, Special is using this little bit of pressure on the front lines to actually be very greedy on the back lines. And Bunny's not going to really have... He's going to be, you know, at a tough time to punish it when he is finally ready.
And I don't know that he's going to see this coming with the Hyperflight Rotors upgrade also coming on out. So while the Raven and the Marines are prepared over in the main base, so 1 SCV was snagged at the natural. Banshee really does want to get out of there. I mean, if you're investing in Hyperflight Rotors, you are expecting those Banshees to stay alive for a little bit.
This is a very interesting way to play with the Banshees.
Banshee Cyclone, it's like a very mobile combination of units.
Yeah, it is. Hi, I mean,
walk onto the tank. Oh no, it gets the Marines.
Definitely not ideal. So again, Bunny's army, when it is able to push into an actual important area, like when it's sieged up on a command center, it is really good. But the problem is getting across the map as we see one finally get picked off.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if this is going to be the time that the Banshees decide, like, yeah, Hyperflight Rotor is going to be finishing up now. Now I can go cause havoc because I know your army's in the center of the map. But this is also a very, very micro-heavy army. You cannot just let Cyclones A move in. That's not the way Cyclones work against the army that Bunny has. So he has to be very, very conscious of all the control over here. He's going to have his Banshees and his Cyclones all helping to defend. This is a fascinating engagement.
Like 4 Banshees, if it wasn't for the Ravens, I feel like could actually maybe tango a little bit. But, you know, obviously the Vikings would be shooting them down the entire time, and they can't do anything about that. But with the Ravens, for interference, like, because maybe these Banshees are supposed to just dive and be like, we got hella DPS, let's go for it. But you can interference matrix them, so I don't think they'd actually be that good of a dive composition. And they do survive for now, and actually they drag some army away, so the Cyclones jump on top of what's on the ground. I mean, SpeCial, it's a tough defense, but he could probably make it happen? I don't know.
Yeah, what I actually really like what SpeCial's done now is that he's positioned his Banshees in a really nice spot. So now he's spreading out Bunny. So he's finding these little opportunities here because Bunny wants to push into a real position. And he's going to try and push into the natural over here. Auto turrets being thrown down left and right. One of the Siege Tanks does go down over there for SpeCial. He has to pull all of his SCVs away from the battlefield. The Banshees have been trying to look for an opportunity to backstab, which is what I liked about the position for those Banshees, but he just hasn't been able to find it. Bunny has done a great job of the positioning of the Vikings and the Raven.
Yeah, it's actually kind of insane how much the Cyclones could have done, but showing how fragile they are in this engagement, basically. They just get bopped by a couple of Vikings in the ground, almost anyways. Does manage to pull back. The continued engagement will happen. This TVT is happening as they're both still on 3cc, but SpeCial has taken damage that I'm guessing he really thought he could maybe avoid. 20 ICVs have been killed. He's had to replace them. Still an almost even worker count, but all this pressure is now being applied to SpeCial as opposed to the way around, so that makes the Banshees really not as good as they could have been.
They are finding some opportunities on the right-hand side as some of the Vikings are still landed. One of the Banshees goes down, or maybe two of them go down on the right-hand side in exchange for it. Also picks off a Marauder and almost picks off another one of these Vikings and some aliens. It looks like he does manage to get it. So the Viking count is getting reduced. I do wonder if that does give more diveability potential, but no, there's more Vikings coming in.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little too late, you know? GG. Bunny, so the timing of his push, I felt like was going to be an opportunity, absolutely. But SpeCial, had he been able to hold, completely, obviously would have been fine, but had he been able to kind of hold off on that amount of damage to his Cyclone count for another 30 seconds, I feel like that's when Bunny is actually a bit out of time. He's out of luck.
Yeah.
He has to go back home because he doesn't have anything on the ground and is still 4 or 5 Cyclones shooting at an air army. But because those Cyclones are just so easy to pick off, right?
Yeah.
Instead of having 4 or 5 Cyclones, it was always 2 and they were injured, and then you have to make sure to split them so they both don't take the damage, and it's just so much more micro that SpeCial has to do that if everything went perfect, okay, I could see the hold. But as soon as something went imperfectly, I was like, ooh, that is tough.
I mean, I actually even want to point it back to, I think it was actually even before when before the Banshees were getting chased away by everything. There was, of course, the Cyclones that were trying to find the army that was moving across the map, and he actually gets a lock on, for example, to the Marines. And when the Siege Tank was also going to be one of the potential options, you pick off one more Siege Tank there. There's a lot less of that positional range DPS that prevents the Cyclones from moving in. If the Cyclones are able to be more consistent with their damage output and everything, then there's actually a lot more options also for the Banshees to potentially move in and find angles. It's just everything, I think, does snowball and starts to add up with small little things like you were saying, but it's just so hard to make everything happen.
Yeah, no, it's actually the Banshees and the Cyclones both are just vulnerable units. They're great for harassment and micro, and they do have some serious output damage, but they also die in 2 shots, basically, to a lot of things. So.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of one of those compositions that I look at, and of course, StarCraft, we've had StarCraft for 11 years. It's one of those compositions I look at and I'm like, we're not good enough for that composition. Our players are really good right now, but we need to become even better to be able to micro that army perfectly enough to use it.
Yeah. And I do think that there's also probably games that SpeCial played in practice where the other Terran player was even a bit more shy, right? They even held back even 30 seconds more, and then that really ruins the timing. So, basically maybe SpeCial, maybe Bunny's just a little too good, yes, but then it also maybe SpeCial, had he gotten some of those lock-ons a little bit better, they could have been in already 2-0. Instead, we do have a tied score onto Romana's side now. In the top left for Psystorm Gaming, he is SpeCial.
And down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have the Red Terran player. He is from Team NV, Bunny. Zombie Grub, another thing that we haven't really brought up is that, of course, with the last match happening and going in favor of Max Packs, the lower bracket, the elimination match is going to be against Clem. And that, I know that Clem has definitely been one of those players where we've been like, oh, but his TVT and also the big global events and stuff has not really been his stage. But that's still just I don't think there's any player in the world that is like, yeah, I want to play my elimination match versus Clem for the group.
That is interesting to think about because, obviously one player had to play Max Packs.
Yeah.
The second player has to. Just if, he's being eliminated, that's the way it goes. But I don't think many of these players are actually the most concerned about that TVP.
Yeah.
So SpeCial, like either way, loses or wins. Same with Bunny. I think they both expected to go up against another Terran, and hopefully their TVT is the bomb, and that's how they win. But yeah, this has actually thrown a wrench perhaps into their plans. But regardless, they have to have more than 3 good TVTs in their pocket to make it out of this group most of the time.
I think it's especially kind of interesting to consider with SpeCial, who definitely came into this with a lot of preparation. Like, these are not your run-of-the-mill standard stock TVT builds, right? These are some kind of specially concocted, definitely some throwback kind of builds and like ideas and stuff in here and there. But if he ends up having to face off versus Clem, it like on the same day and everything, that would end up being a very, very interesting series just to see how SpeCial decides to approach that.
Well, in this game, he did go for another 1-Rax expand, and a Romanicide, that's kind of the like, yeah, I'll give you that. I see why you would do it there. But he goes for a high ground command center, so it is kind of that like middle of the road that SpeCial did not do last game. He really was just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not going to hit me. Let me be basically as greedy as possible. In this game, not as greedy as possible, still a bit greedier, of course, than Bunny. Bunny's going to get the scout on this 100% and perhaps even evacuate with his Reaper. Yep, the regen kicked in. Oh, he gets a little stuck in the corner.
Yeah. Right. Those corners always causing problems. And hey, this Reaper over here for SpeCial is an interesting spot because it also gets, once again, going to be able to get another little HP advantage. And that final shot, the bend.
The corner.
Oh my god, this Reaper is such a baller right now.
Dude, that is a really special Reaper. 100%.
It is, absolutely. Well played, well played. So what does that actually give SpeCial? Well, it does give him a little bit of an opportunity to kind of move around the map with the Reaper and just get a bit more scouting information, have a just bit more of a presence there for a little bit, but it's not going to be the end of the world by any means there for Bunny. Bunny is just probably going to be slightly annoyed and might even take a little damage on his Hellion, for example.
He could, yeah. I mean, he's going to be fully scouted with lacking information on SpeCial side of the map, and while it's not always, I would say it's actually rarely guaranteed a Reaper gets back in on a TVT. If it had, it would have seen a fast third CC from SpeCial. Like, SpeCial could predict what Bunny's doing, basically, so that extra scout he got there was just really like, yep, everything's about as expected. But for Bunny, you might not expect this third CC that fast. Not that I'm not sure, I'm not sure you could really do anything about it, honestly. Like, you have to wait to usually have a certain number of tanks and a certain number of Ravens before you push, but, I mean, information is always better than no information. And Bunny, I actually really wonder how the timing's going to look. If he does push out and puts his third CC on location, well, he didn't, so never mind.
Okay, question answered. Hellion also gets pushed back as the Cyclone gets a lock on there. So far, in a sense, SpeCial has had a pretty great opening in terms of the early game exchanges and everything, but as the Ravens start popping on out, this is where, with Ravens and Sea Shanks starting to come out, it's like you were saying, this is the time where you can start thinking about whether or not you want to do some kind of poke out.
I was wondering if it was a on-location command center by Bunny and he pushes at the same time, right, which is fairly typical. I wondered if the economies would really be that different. But now that it is high ground versus high ground, SpeCial is just literally ahead. Like, he is just getting away with this. So, and with his scout making sure that it is all normal, like 1-1-1 TVT from Bunny, he also doesn't really worry about drops. It really is just like the direct push. And this time around, it does look like SpeCial's not going to be going for a Cyclone-based control aspect. He's going to go right to those tanks. I mean, the Cyclones are kind of cool. Maybe someone's out there is like, why go Cyclones? Like, they're so bad. They just die in, a couple of hits. They give you a lot of map control, and their micro is really good. And also, if you do go into tanks against a guy who might have even 3 Ravens, which, isn't atypical in TVT, just being tank dependent can be very dangerous because they just have to be sieged up to be the most effective. That's when they get interference matrix or auto-turreted to death. So the Cyclones allow you to like back away, run away from those specific spells. But now we are just talking about bio versus bio. So
yeah, and the first game of that kind so far in this series. So this is definitely going to, it's interesting because it is going to be the decider match for this particular series. So it's an important one. We'll see whether or not SpeCial feels as comfortable facing off against Bunny in just that kind of more stock standard style of TVT.
It's not looking standard to Bunny. Yeah, he scouted that was a second factory, didn't he?
Yeah, he threw down a scan earlier after not really seeing a whole lot.
Yeah, he's building another tech lab on his barracks. Bunny has been bamboozled.
Oh,
bamboozled. The Marauder is on the way. That's not what you want when it's Marine tank versus Marine tank. This is actually I mean, it's actually, I'm really impressed. Special, it kind of gets away with some things like that third CC, just like, oh, cool, I killed the Reaper, now this really works, great. But this one was like, oh, he scanned my second factory? I'm still going to go into bio, though. He's going to be really confused. And now his scan confirms that Bunny is, in fact, confused.
Yeah, seeing both of the tech labs over there that are going to be making out some of those Marauders is definitely going to be kind of a funny little chuckle moment, I'm sure, for Special. But I guess when you have the Marauders mixed in, like, what do you do with them against, like, a standard Terran composition?
So the only thing the Marauders really benefit is that they can take more shots from a tank, right? So they live a bit longer. But because they take longer to reduce, they're off a tech lab, not a reactor, and they're more expensive, you just don't have as many. So the damage output of Marines and the flexibility of Marines when they get into bigger numbers and bigger concaves always will trump some guy who has Marauders who's sitting there like, well, at least I can live. And you're like, yeah, but I can live too with 20 more Marines.
Yeah. So
the only thing you could really do is like try and dive bomb them on top of a tank. But as I said, you could kind of do that with 8 Marines too, even.
Yeah, well, if he's going to make his attack, then it seems like now is going to have to be the time. Supply Depot may catch wind of this if the Vikings didn't, but Vikings managed to get one of the Ravens. Auto turrets being thrown down on both sides. Special sieging up a lot later on. Loses all of his Marines, has his Siege Tank Interference Matrix, and is losing quite a few units on this defense.
Apparently with the Marauders, you just play like Bunny and you win.
You just move in at an angle where their army isn't, but their Vikings and Ravens are.
Oh, no, Special knows it, too. Like, he had such an opportunity to have the jump on Bunny, and I think he was so eager to be like, aha, that he did get a little too over-eager, Like, his Marine count wasn't enough to actually get that concave to dominate the tank force with those Marauders that are now dead. Yeah. And now Special has to take all of this damage that even if he does survive, he is bound to lose this game. Special, it happened again, Fear Dragon. I literally described this exact scenario for Special. It seems like his thought process can be so cool, and he does get away with some things, and then it just is like, oh, okay, never mind. All right, yeah, he still does. All right.
Yeah, I'm glad your curse is stronger than mine.
Thank you.
I even had Bunny actually doing some really nice harassment inside the main base, picking off reinforcements. So during all that fighting that was happening, we actually had Special having his reinforcements dying, and I actually like the idea for Special to just say, well, I have to do something to you, because even if I defended all of your units perfectly, that still wouldn't be enough. I have to also do something else to you, but even that is going to be a very, very costly defense.
And at this point, too, like, Bunny's no longer compositionally challenged. Like, a couple of Marauders here are fine. He's back to building nothing but Marines. One Marine less than if Special had his perfect production, but that doesn't really matter. Everything's just going bad. Nothing is going for the way of Special. He's up against Bunny with a 50 supply lead. Bunny has 4 bases. His 4th is already a planetary. Special would have had an upgrade lead, but with the current army count, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, what's the equivalent of Dark Templar for Terran Zombie?
Went behind Turtle.
Wow.
This is actually a really good defense, though.
Yeah.
Hey,
only 30 supply behind, and I don't say that facetiously. I mean, that actually was a really solid defense there.
Yeah, it was. I think, the concave there from Specialist Marines was quite good. Yeah. So Bunny not really finding the kill move that he was perhaps hoping for. This is Special's 3rd base, by the way, on the front lines. Very vulnerable. No, it was actually his 4th base. It's just another orbital.
Yeah, you know what? Another interesting thing is, yes, of course, Special is good behind. He's still behind in like important ways, such as Marines. He does have the siege tank count lead, and I want to say actually, some of that supply lead that Bunny has is actually just medevacs. So, medevacs plus the SCVs. If it comes to another straight up fight, if Special's in a good sieged up position, I actually could see something maybe starting to spin in his favor.
Medevacs are kind of necessary, though, for these battles. At least 4 is usually the Terran motto. Like, at least 4 that can do whatever the hell else I want. But in TVT, it usually is just, like, very consistent. Special is getting to a decent area, but do remember they still down 20 army supply. Bunny's just going to crack him right now, not let him hold on to this contain, and Special is going to be forced to retreat, having lost all those tanks to the front line. At least he saved some of the Marines, and he does, again, have some faster upgrades. But, oh no, he might have just actually opened up the opportunity for Bunny to realize I can just win from here.
Yep, the Marines go down, and so does Special. Bunny takes the series 2-1. He's going to move on to that winner's match. Hands on his head, shaking his head no, but